To the outside world, Marie Osmond's life looked like a picture of success, fame, family legacy, and a career built entirely in the spotlight. But behind that carefully polished image was a past she rarely spoke about, one filled with confusion, fear, and years of emotional weight she carried almost entirely alone. In her memoir, she finally began confronting what happened to her as a child. But the real turning point came much later, when she took a step she had long avoided, naming the person tied to her abuse and rewriting the silence she had lived with for decades. Marie Osmond's name has been famous for decades, but what many people don't realize is just how complicated her life was from the very beginning. Long before the television lights, hit songs, and polished smiles, there was a little girl growing up in a world filled with pressure, expectations, and secrets that would follow her for years. Born Olive Marie Osmond on October 13, 1959, in Ogden, Utah, Marie was raised in a massive Mormon household that already stood out from most American families. She was the second youngest of 9 children and the only girl in the entire family. Growing up with 8 brothers meant there was never much room for privacy, quiet, or individuality. Life inside the Osmond home moved like a machine, and every child had a role to play. Music sat at the center of everything. Her parents, Olive and George Osmond, turned the family into a tightly organized performing unit, teaching the children barbershop harmonies from a young age. What started as family singing eventually became the foundation of an entertainment empire. But behind the cheerful image was a household built on discipline and relentless work. In her memoir, Might As Well Laugh About It Now, Marie explained how seriously her parents approached the family business, investing every dollar they could into vocal coaches, dance instructors, and music lessons. Each child had to master an instrument and then help teach the others. Marie was assigned the marimba, even though she hated it. Personal preference rarely mattered. The expectation was simple: work hard, perform well, and keep moving. When the Osmond brothers first rose to fame during the 1960s, Marie stayed mostly in the background. While they became teen sensations, she watched from the sidelines. But staying out of show business was never really an option in that family. At just 4 years old, she made her television debut on The Andy Williams Show, the beginning of a life spent performing for millions, even before she was old enough to fully understand what that meant. Years later, during an interview with Larry King, Marie admitted that her childhood was far more difficult than people imagined. She remembered asking her parents if she could go outside and play like other kids, only to hear the same response over and over: no, because work came first. Recording sessions, rehearsals, and performances always took priority. By the early 1970s, Marie's mother encouraged her to record a solo album, and that decision transformed her from the Osmonds' little sister into a star in her own right. She made a bold choice that separated her from the rest of the family. While her brothers leaned heavily into pop and rock, Marie chose country music. That gamble changed everything. In 1973, she released Paper Roses, and the song exploded to #1 on the country charts. Suddenly, Marie Osmond was no longer just part of the Osmond family machine. As her success grew, the family saw another opportunity. Her brother Donnie was already one of the biggest teen idols in the country, and pairing the two siblings together seemed like a guaranteed hit. They were right. By 1974, Donnie and Marie had landed multiple top 10 hits together. In 1975, the siblings launched their own television variety series, Donnie and Marie, which instantly became one of the biggest shows on television. But behind the bright stage lights, Marie was quietly falling apart. At just 16 years old, she was already sharing stages with some of the most glamorous celebrities in the world, yet she constantly felt insecure beside them. She described feeling painfully awkward whenever she stood next to women she considered impossibly beautiful: Farrah Fawcett, Jaclyn Smith, Cheryl Ladd, Raquel Welch. No matter how famous she became herself, she often felt like she didn't belong in the same room. And while the cameras captured glamorous television magic, a darker reality unfolded behind the scenes. Marie dealt with constant unwanted attention from older men during those years, including one particularly disturbing encounter with Groucho Marx, whom she later described as inappropriate and predatory toward her. At the height of Donnie and Marie, television executives became obsessed with Marie's weight. Despite the fact that she weighed only 103 pounds, producers labeled her obese and relentlessly pressured her to become thinner. A studio executive reportedly pulled her aside and humiliated her, telling her she was embarrassing the family because of her appearance. The comments devastated her. Marie was still just a teenager, yet she suddenly felt responsible for the jobs of hundreds of people working on the show. The emotional abuse pushed her into dangerous territory. She began pretending to eat meals while secretly starving herself, and at the same time, the workload itself was crushing. Regular 20-hour workdays, endless scripts, complicated choreography, and non-stop production schedules. Growing up as the only girl in a household full of brothers, Marie spent much of her early life searching for female guidance. She unexpectedly found it in one of the biggest television legends of all time, Lucille Ball. When Lucille guest starred on Donnie and Marie, the two connected almost immediately. Away from cameras, they would sit together playing Scrabble while Lucille shared stories, advice, and hard-earned lessons from decades in Hollywood. For Marie, it was the kind of female mentorship she had been craving for years. Her personal life, meanwhile, was anything but stable. In 1979, at just 20 years old, Marie became engaged to acting student Jeff Creston, only for the relationship to collapse 2 months later. She then dated Eric Estrada and was linked to Andy Gibb before eventually seeking stability. In 1982, she married basketball player Stephen Craig. Their son Stephen arrived within a year, and for a moment, it looked like Marie had found balance. But professionally, things were beginning to unravel. By 1984, her music career had lost momentum. Then, in 1985, she staged one of the biggest comebacks of her career with the album There's No Stopping Your Heart, producing 2 number-1 country hits. Professionally, she was back on top. Personally, though, her marriage was falling apart, and after only 3 years together, she and Stephen divorced. On October 28, 1986, Marie married Brian Blozell at the Mormon Jordan River Temple in South Jordan. Together they built a large family, raising 7 children, 2 biological and 5 adopted. From the outside, it looked like Marie had finally achieved the life she always wanted. But privately, she was heading toward one of the darkest periods of her life. After one of her pregnancies, Marie battled overwhelming sadness, severe physical fatigue, and frightening episodes of uncontrollable shaking. Doctors eventually diagnosed her with postpartum depression. In her memoir Behind the Smile, she described the breakdown as the result of a perfect storm: non-stop work obligations, the demands of motherhood, and years of ignoring her own limits. She recalled collapsing on her kitchen floor in tears, unable to reconcile the polished television personality the world knew with the woman privately unraveling behind closed doors. By the 1990s, country music had shifted dramatically toward a grittier, more rebellious style, leaving Marie's wholesome image increasingly out of step with the times. In 1998, she reunited with Donnie for a daytime talk show, but the revival never found the same magic. Ratings struggled, and behind the scenes, tensions between the siblings became impossible to ignore. Arguments became so constant that producers reportedly had to mediate disputes between them. In 2007, Marie joined Dancing with the Stars and quickly became one of the season's biggest fan favorites, fighting her way to a 3rd-place finish. One of the most unforgettable moments came when she collapsed live on television immediately after a performance, an incident that shocked viewers and became one of the most replayed moments in the show's history. The constant training ultimately helped her make significant health improvements, and unlike the pressure she had endured during her teenage years, this time the motivation was personal health rather than industry cruelty. By 2009, Marie found herself at the center of another major public conflict, this time involving longtime manager Carla Naman, whose 35-year partnership with her ended bitterly after she allegedly discovered financial misconduct. The fallout turned into a public dispute filled with accusations from both sides before eventually moving into private arbitration. That same year, after her daughter Jessica came out as a lesbian, Marie publicly voiced her full support. Considering her deeply religious background, many people were surprised by how openly supportive she became. For Marie, the issue was never political. It was about her child. In her memoir Behind the Smile, Marie reflected on a painful truth that took years to fully understand. abuse does not always come in one obvious form. Some wounds arrive loudly and violently, while others settle in quietly, leaving damage that lingers for years beneath the surface. Among everything she endured, the deepest scars came from sexual abuse during her childhood. For decades, Marie carried that trauma in silence, a secret so buried that even her own brothers had no idea what she had gone through. It was only after becoming a mother herself that she finally found the strength to speak openly about being sexually assaulted as a child. Every incident, she recalled, happened in places her parents trusted, around people they believed were safe. And each time, fear kept her trapped in silence. She was threatened and warned never to tell anyone, made to believe that